Welcome to Ravens Across the Pond, your place for everything Baltimore Ravens. From a fresh, European perspective. Plenty of laughs, plenty of piss-taking, and of course, questionable insights. Sit back, relax, grab a beer, and enjoy the show.
Yes, we are back again. I went live last night, and we were kind of trying to look forward to who might be in through the door for second interviews. But before we went live last night, we saw the betting odds drop, and we kind of presumed that it was going to be Jesse Minter. So Nick was on with me last night. Dan's, thank you for joining us tonight, mate. Just what are your immediate reactions to this before we get to Kevin?
So it was kind of originally my first person I was thinking. I was more on the Salah, Mike McDaniel train. But more and more I've seen it developing, and more that I've got on the bandwagon. So now I'm fully invested. I think he's young, enthusiastic, he's defensive minded, which were kind of my preference with the outlook of the defense over the last couple of years. So I think it's a long-term appointment as well. I don't think it's going to be a flash in pan. I think he's going to get back. I think he's young. I think he's going to take us into this next stage. So I'm happy with it, yeah. I think there's a lot of similarities to Mike McDonald's sort of scheming and schematics. He's followed on from him when he were at Michigan. So I think it's kind of easing us fans that kind of wanted that transition when Mike McDonald left. So I'm happy. Let's go.
Kevin, thank you very much for coming back with us. Appreciate you giving up your time. I said before we went live on air, you look extremely tired. Just how crazy has the last 24 hours been for yourself?
I mean, it's definitely been crazy, but it's been exciting. I mean, I will say I'm probably not as exhausted as Eric DaCosta, because that video that the Ravens put out, he needed some sleep, and he admitted, he said my eyes are probably bloodshot, but it's been exciting. And I kind of expected it to either go this way, where they would fall in love with a candidate and move quickly on it, or it might have taken a week or two more with all these other guys that are currently in the AFC or NFC championships right now. But some of the reporting that's come out is like, the Ravens felt some, not just from their end, but other teams, that Minter was the best option for their job, and they didn't want to risk, a team like the Raiders, who, according to reports, were very heavily involved over the last 24 hours before the Ravens hired Minter. And I do think it is the best of both worlds, where you have a young coach that can grow with the team and his ceiling is high, but you also have the floor of him coming in. And it is crazy, because I think with a lot of coaching candidates and head coaching candidates, whenever someone gets hired, fan bases are excited and people are excited, but they're always like, okay, what are they good at and what are they not good at? You kind of hear that from, different people, and like a strengths and weaknesses list almost. I haven't heard one bad thing about Jesse Minter this entire time. Like I literally, like I've actively gone on my way to look for what is Jesse Minter's weakness. And the only thing I can find from people is he can't play Liam Cohen well. That's literally the only thing I've found. And the Ravens do play Jacksonville this upcoming year, so that might be a problem. But I do think that the Ravens, the way that things have gone for them, they wanted to go with familiarity. And it's kind of funny based off of what Steve Bisciotti's comments were during his press conference of like, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when these guys were coordinators, maybe they got a raw deal. And we're going to look at those guys, and then they go with the first-time head coach guy who hasn't had any head coaching experience. So, I mean, I like the hire personally. Seems like a lot of teams were in on him and wanted him, and I'm glad the Ravens were able to get the job
done. Nick, obviously, Eric DaCosta, in his statement last night, kind of said, it was pretty much straight from that first Zoom call. Yeah. Do you think from then it was such a formality for them? Do you think they would have, this is something really small that they might have looked at. Do you think they would have looked at the improvement of Owe when he's gone across?
I think ultimately, if you look at the other players that he's dealt with also from the Ravens, they were called the Los Angeles Ravens for a reason, and it's the fact that they did take a lot of our so-called cast outs, but they made better use out of them than we did when they were here. Now, it was reported that he did interview very well, and we can see that now. If that Zoom call that he had was so impactful that was ultimately when they decided to hire him, he must have left some kind of resonance with that team. And you can tell by Eric DaCosta, he looks like he's questioned his pet inflatable giraffe so often. And you know what? Let's thank the giraffe that Eric DaCosta made the right call in getting Jesse Minter in.
Kevin, with disappointments, what significant changes are we going to see across the board on defense? And I've seen a couple of tweets saying that like if they made disappointments, obviously, and the amount of issues they have on defense, where is it going to be a full rebuild on defense, or can Jesse Minter do this with a bit of a retooling?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a full rebuild. Obviously, I think that there will be changes, but one of the things that people rave about with Jesse Minter is his ability to do more with less, where the Chargers were pretty low in defensive spending, and you can kind of tell, like, Tulio over there in Los Angeles has been incredible. Obviously, the Oweh situation you mentioned, and a bunch of like mid-round picks come, like Dan Henley and Tariq Still from Maryland. Like, it's all these guys, and I think the Ravens defense does have more star power than that Chargers group does. And I would expect them to add to that. I think everybody is banging the table for that top tier pass rusher. I think the Ravens have heard that, and Steve Bisciotti made it clear that that's something that, that and the offensive line are two things that they want to address. But I do think that Jesse Minter, when you look at guys like Mike Green or Malachi Starks or Trenton Simpson or Teddy Buchanan when he comes back from his injury, some of these younger players that, or have potential, but they haven't scratched that potential yet. I think that he and the rest of the staff they're going to develop can get the most out of those players, because we've seen it for the past couple years in Los Angeles. Michigan, he turned that defense around. He was the guy behind turning around a big program in college and an NFL football team. And it didn't take him multiple years to do it either. It was like right off the gate. That was the improvement, which I think is really, really cool. His conversion rates for his years in Los Angeles were elites in both red zone and third down. He's not super aggressive when it comes to blitzing. They were towards the bottom of the league in blitz percentage, but again, like they didn't necessarily need to because their guys were winning one-on-one. So I think that Minter can do a lot of what he did in Los Angeles with most of this Ravens roster intact, but that doesn't mean that they should not add pass rushers and they should not maneuver some pieces around a little bit. So I think that we will potentially see some changes. Is that Marlon Humphrey getting cut? Are they going to go heavy on the trenches? Is Kyle Van Noy not going to come back? We'll see what those decisions are, but I do have confidence that with the Ravens roster right now, Jesse Minter could do a better job than what we saw last year with that exact unit.
Yeah, I also think that the players that's kind of stagnated over the last couple of years since Zach Orr and Harves has been in charge, I think he's going to bring some life into them and push them on. Hopefully, get some more positive vibes in it, and like you said, do more with less. So that in turn, a couple of pieces might actually unlock this jigsaw to get it going.
From your understanding, Kevin, was there really any other candidates in the running for this job? Was it? Do you think they were always going to be all in on Jesse Minter?
I think that he was probably one of their top choices, and as the process went on, they identified him. Now I know that Jess Rebeck and some of the reporting that's come out there has said that the Ravens liked a couple of the assistants that they interviewed that were going to play on championship weekend, but that there became a lot of pressure for Minter because he was one of the candidates that was getting a ton of attention. And like the Raiders, from the reporting that's come out, were like, that was a real thing. Like the Raiders were really in on Jesse Minter as well. And, I think that was kind of the whole Cleveland thing that happened yesterday, where it was like, he had the interview, but I think it kind of came down to the Ravens and the Raiders. And then I think it kind of got singled down to the Ravens because the Ravens essentially probably committed. And again, I wish I was a fly on the wall in those rooms and in what ended up going on. But, it seems pretty like with some of those reports, it does feel like Minter was probably the front runner and they had a good idea that, yeah, we probably want this guy. But essentially, I think that the process sped up super quickly where it was kind of like just the whole league. It was kind of stagnant for a week or week and a half after the season ended. And then we really started to see the openings fill up. And while I don't think the Ravens were necessarily like super interested in like Jeff Hafley, I don't even think they requested an interview Hafley, but like other guys that were starting to get these jobs, the number of openings were dwindling. And, with Minter kind of establishing himself, I'm sure the Ravens were probably thinking, well, worst case scenario is, we wait to interview these guys after the championship weekend, and Minter already is in Las Vegas, so that's done. And then maybe Kubiak prefers Buffalo or something. And then, if our top choice is Kubiak, do we have to settle for our third choice? And so they felt like Minter, they felt comfortable enough with Minter being the guy. The familiarity, I'm sure, played a big part in it too, with him being in the building. Like, I'm sure that gave them a lot more confidence in bringing him in. And I guess, according to reports, kind of scrapping their process early.
It's a quicker transition with Minter, isn't it? He's got familiarity with culture. He knows what it's like to be a Raven. So we're not after a big rebuild. We just want to a continuation of John Harbaug's work. So it makes a hell of a lot of sense. So why drag this process of interviewing every Tom, Dick, and Harry? Why not just let's get him in the building? Let's get this show on the road.
Right, and the window isn't closed for the Super Bowl either. If anything, this props it open a little bit longer. And it's already reported that Jesse Minter has a good relationship with Lamar Jackson. So now all that remains is for him to make the correct offensive coordinator call. And I think there are many guys that would fill that role nicely for Lamar.
Yeah, Dan, were you going to ask Kevin about coordinators?
Yeah, well, ultimately, who do you think Jesse will want, and who do you think that's possible for us to get? Because the names there's not that many. There's Kingsbury and Brady, and it's like, do you want the air raid style offense? Is that going to work with personnel we've got? What, you know what I mean? I know Lamar seems to reporting that he likes that, but we are O-line. Is it possible to have that many pass blocking sets? And where do we go? What do you reckon?
Yeah. I think, I honestly, I'm not a huge fan of Kingsbury. Now, I could live with it because it's not him as head coach. Like, his head coach, I was completely out on it, but as an offensive coordinator, I could live with it. The problem with Kingsbury is that his offenses fizzle out after a while, and that's been a problem at multiple stops. I think he's a creative mind. I think that he could have success with Lamar because, again, like, Lamar is the key to this thing, but at the same time, you don't want to kind of run into a situation that you put yourself in where it's just like, Lamar, please save us, right? And it felt like at times that was what this offense was. I think Brady's intriguing. I actually had Willie Snead on Locked On Ravens this morning, and he was very complimentary of Brady. He and Brady worked together in New Orleans early in their careers, and he was excited about the possibility of Joe Brady potentially coming in and working with Lamar Jackson in that offense. And he kind of sold me on it a little bit more, and where, the Bills, they have a great offensive line. They have a great run game, obviously Josh Allen, but their wide receiver core, it's kind of not so great right now. And they, it's a lot of screen passes from them. They also kind of got into that Josh, please save us at times, but they were able to run the ball effectively as well. So I think putting Brady in an offense with Derrick Henry, and assuming you work on the O-line, I mean, if it's the same offensive line and nothing matters, but like if you add a couple of pieces on the O-line, that's interesting. But I mean, I honestly, for me, I'm okay with them bringing in like a Nate Shieldhouse or Davis Webb as their OC as a first-time play caller. And it's taken me some time to get there because of the whole Zach Orr thing and the first-time play caller thing. But I think that, and it's no disrespect to Zach Orr, obviously, but I just think that those guys are more ready than Zach Orr was when he started calling plays for the Ravens. And it feels like, again, like we get these like inklings on, these reports that come out that, feels like the Ravens might like Davis Webb here. And I think that it makes a lot of sense where like maybe a desperate team, and desperate might be the wrong word, but a team that like is losing out on candidates might just have to give the head coach promotion to a guy like that to get a talent like that in their building. But I think for Baltimore, it makes a lot of sense where, like, you know, you're working with a couple of really high-powered offenses in Denver and Los Angeles, who both obviously have had success enough this season to get to the championship games. I'd be okay with either of those guys coming in. So if I had to go with like a veteran coordinator, I'd probably go with Brady. I'm not in on Dable. I don't really like that option, and I don't even think he's going to come to Baltimore anyway. I think Brady would be my choice for a vet, and then I think Davis Webb would be a really intriguing choice for a new play caller. But I'm also all right with Shieldhouse too. So there are a lot of options, and I'm sure Lamar's word will also have some influence. So if the Kingsbury stuff is all true, then you can't rule him out either.
Just on the subject of coordinators, kind of, we've had a question sent in from Henrietta. She says, what challenges and advantages would the Ravens have had faced given they were on a head coach search for the first time in 18 years? And will this extend to the other staff as it's more than the odd coordinator we've been hiring under Harbaugh's reign?
Challenges in terms of like what they're going to face moving forward or what they did?
Just like obviously I don't know how possibly means that, possibly in regard to searching for a new head coach after 18 years, and then what does that mean for the coordinators that they need to bring in? You know, it is a huge change for the organization.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely going to change around some things. And, you know, like, as I've kind of said, well, especially in going through the process for the first time after 18 years, you know, the Ravens have, when you establish a culture and it's a long-standing one, there are going to be things that just become routine that other teams just haven't really had. For example, like, you know, practice times, which John Harbaugh and the staff changed around from the morning to the afternoons. You know, what's that going to look like moving forward? The conditioning test, which was like the craziest conditioning test in the world. Like, what's that going to look like moving forward? You know, that was like a John Harbaugh thing, I'm pretty sure. So, like, is that going to be different? You know, how they train, you know, what the systems are. And I think that with Minter, you know, they, in their eyes, probably avoided the whole, like, we have to do a complete reset of a lot of different things, because they're in an interesting situation where, you know, it's more teams this year that are in this category, but you're still trying to win. Like Nick said, like the Super Bowl window, it is extended, in my opinion, with this Minter thing. And the fact that you can bring him in, a lot of teams who are looking for new head coaches, it's more of like, okay, let's install this new culture. Let's have it. It's going to marinate for a couple of years. And then in a couple of years, we're going to be good. No, the Ravens, like, it's now, like, you got to win now. And so I think that probably helped the process. And so I think that some of the challenges you will probably face if you brought in a completely new face as the head coach, Minter probably said, hey, I remember us doing this back in 2020. You know, let's just keep on doing that. Or, you know, these guys I'm already familiar with in the building. We don't have to, you know, do a complete overhaul of the staff. Now, we do know that John Harbaugh is going to take a decent amount, most likely, of staffers and maybe players to New York with him. So it is a bit of a unique situation there. But I do think that there are less challenges with Minter than there would have been with a new, like, fresh face candidate that hasn't had ties to the organization. And honestly, like, that just feels like it's what the Ravens wanted all the way. Because, you know, you look at some of the other finalists, like, obviously, you know, and I say finalists as if, like, you know, Minter wasn't the one, but still, like, the guys who were linked to Baltimore, you know, Clint Kubiak with his dad being the O coordinator in Baltimore, that's familiarity. Anthony Weaver being a former player and a coach in Baltimore, that's familiarity. So it's not that Baltimore eliminated all the candidates who didn't work or play for the team in the past, but I think that bringing Minter in does alleviate some of the, we need to get everything new in here, because it's an adjustment period, because some players are going to be Minter guys that he likes and wants to keep around, and other guys he says, I don't know how to use this guy. He's not the best fit for our team anymore. And that'll be a process that we're going to have to figure out over the course of the next couple of weeks and couple of months. And it's going to be an adjustment and a change, but I'm sure that Baltimore did value the fact that it's not going to be as much turnover as maybe it would have been with somebody else.
I think we've already got an advantage as well. We've got one side of the ball covered. Whereas we had a CEO type head coach, so we have to surround it with creative minds. We've got the creative mind head coach who's going to oversee the defense, call the plays most probably. So, like I say, if we nail the OC, I think we've got a full house.
I think the Ravens are in a very unique position also, that we're not a house on fire. everything, the garbage cans aren't on fire. It's just we have a few deficiencies that we need to fix. And that's what Jesse Minter needs to get to doing. But also, there are rumors that he might bring in either a senior defensive assistant or a defensive coordinator. How would you feel about Anthony Weaver?
I like that, actually, and there are a couple of names that kind of fit that bill. If I'm being honest with you, like Weaver, I think, and again, the big thing that it would have to be with one of those guys is they would have to not call the plays. Like that'd be the big thing, because they've been in that situation. So I know a lot of people are talking about Denard Wilson right now. That's another guy that people are looking at like that. I like that one. I also think Raheem Morris is an option that people are looking at, Jim Schwartz. But again, how many of those guys would be okay with not calling plays? But like Weaver makes a lot of sense. And he's someone that a lot of people are really high on. And again, like as a head coach, I would have probably have needed to be sold on that one. Like, okay, what was the decision-making process with Weaver as the head guy? But as a defensive coordinator, I think you can really make an argument there. Now, my prediction is probably they go with a younger coach. Maybe someone from Los Angeles comes over, and that's probably what ends up happening. But I'm not ruling out the fact that like that could potentially happen, because as we kind of look through this process, yes, there are still a lot of openings available relative, because this has been like a crazy year for head coach openings, but not every one of these head coach candidates are going to actually get jobs. And so like Weaver and Joe Brady and, Wilson and some of these guys who are coming from other coaching staffs who are not being retained or are in the process of like, okay, what's my status here? They're not going to be retained, some of them, like we did see with Denard Wilson. So there might just straight up be free agents at the end of this whole thing, and they can do what they please. And I think that, again, if there was an opening at D coordinator where they could call plays, maybe that's what they prefer. But I mean, there aren't really a ton of those either right now. So I do believe that, like for Hafley, him coming in, what's Weaver standing there? Well, I assume he's probably not back in Miami next season. I like that idea a lot, actually. That's good thinking.
It's also a good idea on basis to surround him with some familiar faces and some experience, because he's still a first-time head coach. So we don't want to chuck him in deep end and say, right, you've got to transform this defense whilst you're looking after everything else with team affairs. So getting him a good guy that can help him out on that side of the ball to let him oversee the whole organization, it can only be a good thing.
Kevin, with just in regard to some of the pending free agents on defense, which one of them do you think is more likely for Jesse Minter to want to look at bringing back?
On defense, I would like them to bring back Chidobe Awuzie. I think he played a really good year with the Ravens, and certainly I think it worked out for both. Like, this is what both parties probably envisioned here is, Awuzie got cut by the Titans. Titans were still paying salary. Awuzie said, where's an opportunity I can go and play for cheap and win? And unfortunately, that's the only thing that didn't go right, is the Ravens didn't really win. But he still was in an opportunity where he was able to rebuild his value up, because Awuzie is a really good player. The problem is he's injured a lot. And, with a fully healthy season, he played really well. And I think that, again, with the status of Marlon up in the air, I think he should move more to safety Marlon next year if the Ravens do decide to keep him. I know you can save the money if you cut him, but, I'd be curious to see what their decision would be there. I think Awuzie is a guy that was valuable to them. And we know the saying, you can never have enough corners. I mean, that's the saying. And it's true for this team every single year in some way, shape, or form. So I'm hoping that they bring him back. Other guys defensively, I know there's a lot of conversation about Kyle Van Noy and whether he'll return. I assume the Ravens are going to hit their pass rush hard at the edge group. So if he were to come back, he would probably have to take a pretty significantly reduced role, because I'm expecting Mike Green to take a leap next year. Tavius Robinson's still going to have a role. You still have other guys as well. So I don't know that there's just a spot for Kyle Van Noy on this roster anymore. But I think Awuzie, to me, defensively is probably the big one. And other than that, I mean, Linderbaum is the one, but he's obviously offensive. I'd be okay with them bringing back Draymond Jones too. I think he'd be a guy that, he proved himself. And it's probably going to be one of Draymond Jones and Kyle Van Noy. And I think that they will probably choose Van Noy in that situation. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I'm not really keen on Alohi Gilman. Ardarius, I'd like them again if they had to choose between Alohi and Ardarius. I'd love them to bring back Ardarius. I think that's a guy that Jesse Minter can really unlock at the, with what we've seen from him. So I think there are going to be a decent amount of guys that do come back, but again, some guys Jesse Minter will just be like, he doesn't fit what I want to do here, and good luck at the next stop.
I was literally just going to ask him that question about Alohi Gimel. So he went other way, didn't he? So it's like he's going to get there. Oh, a familiar face. Back out the door.
That's the thing too, where the Chargers are interviewing Zach Orr. You got like coaches and players going like this with Los Angeles and Baltimore all the time here now.
Like Twin Cities, isn't it?
Kevin, thank you very much for your time. You've given us half an hour. I know you're busy. I know you've mad busy last night. One final word before you go, Kevin. If the over or under on the Ravens' amount of wins next year in the regular season is 12, what are you taking?
Oh man, well, obviously I'd have to see the roster first, but if they do what I expect them to do, I will take the over. I do think this year was a fluke for them, and obviously there are real issues that they have to fix on both sides of the ball. But with the way that I think that they can address their O-line, they can address the pass rush, and as long as they stay healthy, Lamar is able to be healthy for the full season, I could see this team propelling themselves back up to the top of the AFC North. Like, I don't think this window is closed at all, like we were talking about. Like, they have real shots to win here, and I think Minter gives them a real opportunity. And I think this worked out for everybody. It worked out for the Ravens and Minter, worked out for the Giants and Harbaugh. I just think it was time, and I think everybody comes out on top here. But for the Ravens, and they're playing a second-place schedule this year, not a first-place one. So I will say that they win. It would be over 12 games if that was the over-under.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Take it easy, and we'll speak soon.
Nice one, Kev.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
See you.
I think if we get Lamar's contract sorted, I think it frees us up, doesn't it? To then start making. So I know we're not giving EDC much time to have some rest after the recruitment process, but let's get that contract sorted.
If we could get Lamar Jackson's contract sorted, it would remove a lot of the complexities that Eric DaCosta would have to jump through in order to extend it through void years, so to speak. And, if we want a big ticket item on defense, especially a pass rusher, if we can't draft for one, then that's something that really needs to take place before free agency opens.
Yeah, Scotty said they wanted it sorted a lot earlier than last time, didn't he? Which was April time? You don't want to be going into draft like that, do you? You need to know what you've got in-house, what money you've got available, so that you can draft accordingly.
I think it was draft day that it was announced. But yeah, look, exciting times ahead. Kevin's always great to have on, isn't he? I could talk any Ravens, Orioles with Kevin. He's great, and he does give up a lot of our time to come on.
It does look like he's not slept for 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, I was messaging him last night at midnight UK time, going, "Hey Kev, do you want to get online and do a live?" And he's probably thinking, "Who's this knobhead?" Nick, as always, thank you very much for your time and contribution. You went down extremely well last night in the group chat, so everybody likes you. And it's glad to have you on more regularly.
For sure.
Might have to give you the title. We'll think about that. Dan's, as always, thank you very much. Hopefully Kevin has gone away and he hasn't got a banging headache and he understood every single word you said there. I noticed he laughed at Tom, Dick and Harry. He's probably Googling what the fuck that means now. But yeah,
I'm trying my best to put my phone voice on.
Thank you very much, guys. We've been Ravens Across the Pond, brought to you by the Across the Pond Sports Network, sponsored by Stack, your number one place for NFL bet tracking in the UK. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Ravens Across the Pond. We'll see you next time.